Krishna to everyone. Thank you all for joining us today. And I want to thank Minneapolis for giving me this wonderful opportunity to actually be part of this wonderful celebrations. Govardhan Puja is so essential in our devotional service. And Srila Prabhupada has so kindly given us this opportunity to be, to understand and become aware of what this beautiful pastime of Krishna is, and also to become aware of the significance of the pastime. So let us today remember Krishna in this wonderful Leela for a while, and hopefully we will take back some very nice points from Bhagavatam. I'm so blessed to have wonderful darshan of Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra ki beautiful deities. And it was so nice, such a nice decoration of Giri Govardhan. And I can see the Giri Govardhan hill. So thank you to all the devotees who work so hard to do this. And the beauty of this is that you all have come together despite all the challenges and restrictions. And thank you for giving me nice darshan now. And I remember the devotees from Egan. I think many years ago I traveled there too, and we had a nice program, I remember, in the hall. So to all the devotees who worked so hard on this, we are remembering all of you. Thank you very much, Jai. So nice to see everyone. So you're all in your homes now, but we are connected by Govardhan. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narotamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayamudiraye. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Nara Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadev, the author. Nasta prayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed. And loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Whenever we come for festivals, Srimad Bhagavatam tells us very nicely in the 12th canto, 12th chapter, 50th verse. Shukadev Goswami is explaining to Parikshit Maharaj, Tadeva Ramyam Ruchiram Navam Navam Tadeva Shashvan Manaso Maho Sattvam Tadeva Shokar Navashoshanam Rinam Yad Uttama Shloka Yasho Anugiyate. So this puts us in the right mood to receive this wonderful pastime of Krishna. Because Shukadev Goswami says that any words that describe the glories of the all-famous personality of Godhead, these words are very attractive. They are very relishable and they are ever fresh. This is very important. So three things happen to us when we hear the glories of Krishna, especially in his pastimes like Govardhan Leela. These pastimes, they're very attractive. They're also very relishable and they're always fresh. No matter how many years we keep hearing Govardhan Leela, it is never becoming tainted by time because it is always non-different from Krishna. In fact, Shukadev Goswami says that these words that describe the glories of Krishna, they are like a perpetual festival for the mind. Manaso Maha Utsavam. Amazing, huh? Manaso Maha Utsavam. They are a perpetual festival for the mind. And because they are a perpetual festival for the mind, they have this way of drying up whatever miseries that we have. Bhagavatam says we have an ocean of miseries in our hearts. But because somehow or another we are with Bhagavatam, the power of Bhagavatam is that it has this great power to dry up the ocean of miseries. That's why all these festivals like Govardhan Puja, they connect us to Krishna. This is very important. Krishna consciousness actually means connection to Krishna. And that is why in Bhagavad Gita, I think it's 266 of Bhagavad Gita, very nicely Krishna tells Arjuna, Nasti buddhira yuktasya, na cha yuktasya bhavana, Nacha bhavayata shantir ashantasya kutas sukham. So he says that if you're not connected to the Supreme, if we're not connected to Krishna and Krishna consciousness, then two things will always elude us. We will never have the transcendental intelligence. In Govardhan Puja, in Govardhan Leela, because Indra was so caught up by pride, the transcendental intelligence to understand Krishna as Supreme Personality of Godhead skipped him. So when you are not connected to Krishna, when we are not connected to Krishna, then what happens is our transcendental intelligence is not there. Material intelligence is there, but transcendental intelligence is not there. And our mind is not steady also. Krishna tells Arjuna, our mind will not be steady. It'll be chanchal, it'll jump from here to there, and we cannot focus on Krishna. So without steady mind and transcendental intelligence, Krishna tells us, where is the possibility of peace? There's no peace. And if there is no peace, how can there be even happiness, Prabhus and Matajis? So actually Govardhan Puja and remembering Govardhan Leela and remembering Krishna actually brings us happiness and peace. It's a very practical science actually. So this is very important. So the whole purpose of Govardhan Leela is to always glorify Krishna. And I think 2 verses before that 12:12:50 verse, in 12:12:48, I think, it is nicely stated by Shukadev Goswami also. Sankirtyamano Bhagavan Anantaha Shrutanubhavo Vyasanam hi pumsam Praveshya chittam vidunoti ashesham Yatha tamo arko brahmivati avataha. This is very nice. Yatha tamo arko abram ivati vataha. When people properly glorify Krishna, or if they just simply hear about his power. So someone is glorifying Krishna and everyone is hearing about his power. What happens? Krishna personally enters into the heart of everyone now. All of us are gathered at this moment. Almost 56 participants are there. So we are all now experiencing one very important thing. We are glorifying Krishna and we are hearing about his power. So what does Krishna do? Krishna enters personally into each of our hearts. And today, as we are hearing about Govardhan Leela, he will cleanse away every trace of misfortune. Whatever misfortune there is in our hearts, he will remove it. Just like the sun can remove darkness and powerful winds, can drive away the clouds. So this is a very important point actually. So this Govardhan Leela is very wonderful. In Krishna book and in the 10th canto, it spans almost 2-3 chapters, I think. Now we must always remember that the purpose of Krishna coming to this world is actually to protect his devotees. This is a very important point. Bhuyo namasad vrijane chide asatam asambhavaya akila sattva murtaye. In the 2nd canto, 4th chapter, I think it's 13th verse of Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadev Goswami sets down the foundation for Govardhan Puja and Govardhan Leela. He tells us that Krishna comes into this world. Why? Because he comes here to relieve the pure devotees of any distress. He is the liberator of the pure devotees from distress. So whenever the devotees are in difficulty, Krishna is always coming to relieve them of that difficulty. We must remember that Krishna doesn't take away the difficulty, but he removes the effects of the difficulty. The difficulties are there because that is part of material existence. But Krishna removes the difficulty for the pure devotees. But at the same time, Krishna does something else. He checks the advancement of atheistic temperament. Sometimes, even when we take up devotional service, there are such things as pride, envy, and anger. And they come into our hearts, especially the starting point being pride. When we take up devotional service, maybe during Damodar month, we are preaching so much, we start thinking, that we are very good preachers, or, we're getting so many preaching engagements. And when that happens, unknown to us, our false pride comes into the heart. And when these symptoms of atheistic, because this is demonic and atheistic tendencies come, even in devotees, Krishna will check it. So Krishna just doesn't check the atheistic temperament of demons. But when we are trying to take up devotional service and we are struggling devotees, he also checks our atheistic temperament. So this is very important. And Krishna is so kind that it is stated in the 4th canto, 30th chapter, 24th verse, Namo Vishuddha Sattvaya, Haraye Hari May the say. The Prachetas say that Krishna, we offer our obeisances to you because you are Vasudeva, you're in the heart of everyone. And this is what Krishna does every day. Hare, Hari, may the say. Hari, the Lord, he's always putting his brains, transcendental brains, into action. And he's always thinking day and night how to relieve the devotee of their distress and how to bring the living souls back to Krishna. So Krishna is a kind father. Sometimes he has to check us in difficult ways, but sometimes he protects us in sweet ways. And he did both in Govardhan Leela. He did both in Govardhan Leela. So in the 10th canto, between the chapters of 24 to 27, Govardhan Leela is very, very practically given to us. Just before Govardhan Leela, Krishna had satisfied the wives of the Brahmanas. And Bhagavatam tells us, that he satisfied the wives of the Brahmanas because the Brahmanas themselves had forgotten that the purpose of all their fire sacrifice was actually Krishna. But the wives remembered that. And so after satisfying them, Krishna and Balaram were walking away from that place. And suddenly, just there, they saw that Nanda Maharaj and all the cowherd boys and men, they were all gathering and they were arranging for a big sacrifice. And the sacrifice was for Indra, who is the predominant devata for supplying water and rains. So Krishna actually knew the situation because he's in the hearts of everyone. But nevertheless, he's teaching us many points here. So he went up to Nanda Maharaj and very humbly he inquired from his father. And he asked very sincere questions. He said, my dear father, what is this great endeavor that you're doing now? Why are you collecting so much of food and offerings? What is this meant to achieve? Is it some sacrifice? Who is the goal of this sacrifice? And if there is this sacrifice, then what is the aim? What are we supposed to achieve? And for whose satisfaction is the sacrifice? So he was thinking this way. And by what means the sacrifice must be executed? So Krishna asked very pertinent questions. And in asking these questions, he brought up a very important point actually that Prabhupada brings up in Krishna book. Prabhupada says that we should not become the followers of the blind traditions. It's very important. Sometimes, we do traditions, especially during Diwali period, and we don't know the traditions. There's this story, of this man. When he was a young boy, he set for his sister's wedding, and all the paraphernalia was there, and the priest was there. At that time, a cat came into the space of the wedding, and it was just running around, threatening, to destroy all the items that were placed. So the priest very quickly improvised and got a basket and put it over the cat so the cat would remain stationary. And so the boy saw that the cat remained there, stationary throughout the whole ceremony. So when the time came for him to get married, he looked around, at all the things and the paraphernalia. And then he realized one important tradition was missing. So he turned to the priest and said, my dear sir, I think you have missed a very important item amongst all this paraphernalia. And the priest said, what was the item? He said, oh, there should be a cat with a basket. And this is what happens when we follow traditions without understanding what is behind them. The cat in the basket was an improvisation. But over the years, because there is no connection to Vedic knowledge, no connection to Bhagavatam, we just come up with funny traditions. That's why one time in Grantharaj, Maharaj said very nicely that if we don't establish Vedic traditions according to Shastras, and the Vedic tradition means we should glorify Krishna. That is Vedic tradition. So if you don't glorify Krishna, then other traditions will come in. Maharaj was giving that very humorous example, of this pickpocket man who wanted to get married to a pickpocket girl. So they got married together. And of course, their tradition was the pickpocketing tradition. And so in time, she became pregnant and she was going to have the child. So she gave birth to the child in the hospital. And the moment the child came out, husband and wife pickpockets were very happy. And they were praying very hard that the combined sum of our knowledge of pickpocketing should go into this child. So as they were looking at this child, they realized something unusual. Child was clenching his right fist and refused to open it. No matter what they did, they could not open the fist. Finally, the father brought something very valuable, and showed the child. And immediately the child opened the wrist, opened the palm. And to their surprise, they saw a ring. And the father and mother were so surprised. It's not our ring. Whose ring is it? And then the nurse who delivered the child realized that the ring on her finger was missing. And to the father and mother were jubilant. Oh, even just after the child had come, the child had taken up such a nice pickpocketing tradition. So Maharaj said, that these are not the traditions we want. So Krishna was very right to ask these questions. If we perform and celebrate Diwali, do we do it because it is a ritual? Or do we do it because there must be an element of spirit in the ritual? Then it becomes spiritual. If you put SPI to ritual, then it becomes spiritual. So Govardhan Puja is not something which is material. And Indra Puja, which is what Krishna was alluding to, was not entirely the basis of Vedic tradition, because they should be glorifying Krishna, who actually empowers Indra to be able to give all the rains. So Nanda Maharaj answered very nicely. He said, my dear Krishna, Indra is the great controller of the rain, and the clouds are his personal representatives. And they provide water, and water gives us nice land, fertility, the crops grow, and people become happy. They become maintained. And we are offering all the grains which have come from his own discharge of water. So by performing the sacrifice, we hope that we will continue to please Indra. So Krishna heard smilingly, and he replied back. He said, my dear father, don't you realize that Indra can only give us rain if we perform our prescribed duties and offer sacrifice to him? If our prescribed duties are very good, then Indra will reciprocate. So therefore, based on that logic, my dear father, all we have to do is continue performing prescribed duties, because duties are what attracts Indra. Without the duties, Indra will not give rain. So it is the duties which are very powerful. So then Krishna concluded very interestingly, why worship Indra then? We should actually not worship Indra, because Indra is weaker than our prescribed duties. We should worship our karmas. We should worship our actions. So Prabhupada writes in Krishna book that Krishna, in order to incite the anger of Indra, because he knew Indra was very proud, and Krishna was deliberately actually pinching Indra on the point of pride, because Indra was definitely going to hear about this conversation. And this is how Krishna was going to protect the devotees in Vrindavan, but he was also going to protect Indra, who is also a dearmost devotee of Krishna. And how did he want to protect them? Protect him by smashing his pride. So then Krishna then told them, he turned to the Nanda Maharaj and all the other cowherd men. He said, we should seriously worship activities in our work. And in fact, we have been living so nicely in this Vrindavan Dham, because who is our worshipable deity? Think about it. Our worshipable deity actually is, we are forest dwellers, Father. We're not city people. We should do a sacrifice for the pleasure of the cows. We should do a sacrifice for the pleasure of the brahmanas. We should do a sacrifice for the pleasure of Govardhan Hill. Because this Govardhan Hill, with all its paraphernalia, is always giving us shade. It's giving us so much of minerals and pure water. It is becoming the shelter for the cows and all the animals. It gives us beautiful forestry and greenery. And it actually attracts the rain because, it is so verdant and so green. So actually this great mountain of Govardhan is the source of shelter in Vrindavan. So why don't we worship them? And so Krishna gave this very nice point. If someone is sustaining us, why should we take shelter of someone else? Govardhan is sustaining us. Why should we take shelter of someone else? In fact, if we take shelter of someone else, Krishna says in Krishna book, it is like taking shelter of an unfaithful woman. Then we become like unfaithful women or unfaithful men, because someone is taking care of us, but we are turning to someone else. So this is such an interesting way that Krishna was slowly bringing all the residents of Vrindavan back to understanding who is the source of their shelter. So then Krishna said, let us now take all this and offer it to Govardhan. So Nanda Maharaj was hesitant, He thought, all right, we'll have a separate Govardhan Puja, but now we do Indra Puja. And Krishna said, no, don't waste time. Don't waste time. And this is a nice point. We should never waste time when it comes to doing devotional service to Krishna and his devotees. The moment Maharaj said that we should have an idea to glorify Krishna, before that idea leaves our mind, very quickly we should execute it. It is said nicely in Shastras, that auspicious things we should immediately execute. Inauspicious things we should delay as much as possible. So Krishna was telling them, don't delay auspiciousness. Quickly do it now. And so what did Krishna say? Please take all these sacrificial items. They're all there. Bring it now to Govardhan Hill and start doing it. I'm there, Father. I will help all of you. Now, this is very important. Krishna then tells them, you please take all this and put this paraphernalia in front of Govardhan Hill and then perform nice kirtan and circumambulate the hill. If you do such a beautiful sacrifice, then what did he say? He says this sacrifice to Govardhan will be very dear to the cows. Father, it will be very dear to Govardhan himself. It will be very dear to the Brahmanas. And now Krishna says very important, it will be very dear to me. Now the moment Nanda Maharaj and the residents of Vrindavan heard that this will become very dear to Krishna, then in their simple, unfettered and unconditional heart, they decided if this will please Krishna, then we will do it. So this is a very important point. You will notice, that Nanda Maharaj was the father of Krishna. The cowherd men were so much more senior to Krishna. The Brahmanas were senior to Krishna. And yet, they all were so much in love with Krishna that they accepted him as the authority. In other words, they had no pride in their heart. Material designations of age, seniority was not important to them. They knew that Krishna was all in all. And on the basis of love, they decided to reciprocate. So Nanda Maharaj accepted Krishna's words as proper. Therefore, Bhagavatam tells us that there was no pride in Nanda Maharaj's heart. Very important point. The interesting thing about Govardhan Leela is that Krishna was actually going to come to curb the pride of Indra, but he also came to reward the humility of Nanda Maharaj. You see the point? Nanda Maharaj's humility attracted Krishna. The residents of Vrindavan, humility always attracted Krishna. In fact, they bound Krishna with their humility and love. But at the same time, on the other side of the coin, Indra was also a devotee of Krishna. And Krishna was concerned that his pride was overtaking him. And therefore he thought, let this one pastime serve both measures. Let me reward the humility of the residents of Vrindavan, and let me at the same time curb the pride of Indra. Such a nice point. And so now Krishna then arranged for a beautiful Govardhan Puja. Nice arrangements were made, and appropriate Vedic mantras were chanted. Great food offerings were put before Govardhan, and the food offerings were amazing. If you read Krishna book, and if you read the offerings now, you tell me, please stop speaking so that we can now take what is being offered at the moment in Balram Prabhu's house. But the offerings were sumptuous actually. And all the Brahmanas were well taken care of. Krishna arranged, that choice grass was given to the cows, and a great kirtan started. And then Krishna ordered that everyone should circumambulate Govardhan. And as they circumambulated Govardhan, Krishna led in the glories, chanting the glories of Govardhan. He then led in the chanting of the glories of the Brahmanas. And all the Vrindavan residents reciprocated because they sang the glories of Krishna. How nice it is, They chanted the glories of Krishna. And these Vrindavan residents, you know how they are. They are so fixed on Krishna that they took this opportunity to all just remember Krishna. That's all they did. They only wanted to remember Krishna. It is stated so nicely in Bhagavatam, isn't it? That they all follow the principle given by Kunti Mata. Kunti Mata in 1.836 of Srimad Bhagavatam, so nicely she says, Shrunavanti gayanti, grananti abhikshnashaha, smaranti nandanti, tavehitam janaha, ta eva pashyanti, achirena tavakam, bhava pravaho, paramam padambujam. O Krishna, those who continuously hear about you, those who continuously chant your names, those who continuously repeat your transcendental activities. Or even if they can't do all this, Nandanti, they take pleasure in hearing and seeing others doing that. What happens to all of them? They certainly see your lotus feet. So these Vrindavan residents, even as they were circumambulating Govardhan, they were all continuously hearing about Krishna. They were continuously chanting Krishna's names. They were continuously repeating the transcendental activities of Krishna. This is very important because even if we repeat Indra's name so many times, because Indra by nature is temporary in his existence, then our chanting of his names will also be temporary in its existence. But Krishna is absolute. And because he's eternal, our chanting of his name, his fame, his activities will always be eternal. And therefore, by chanting Krishna's names, we can see Krishna's lotus feet. Tvam bhakti yoga paribhavita hritsaroja ashe shrutikshita pato nanunata pumsam. Krishna says, Brahma says in the 3rd canto, 9th chapter, he says, Tvam bhakti yoga paribhavita. These residents of Vrindavan, they were 100% engaged in the bhakti of Krishna. So they were always just hearing his glories. Even if they could not see him personally, by hearing Ashe Srutikshita Pato, Shruta, Ikshita, just by hearing about Krishna, they could Ikshanam, they could take darshan of Krishna. So the residents of Vrindavan were following the principle of Kunti Mata in Bhagavatam. And because of that, they were so blissful just moving around Govardhan, because they were remembering the glory of the devotee Govardhan, and they were remembering the glory of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And because of that, the residents of Vrindavan were always liberated. There was no question of not being liberated for them. They were always protected by Krishna because they were single-minded. Tasmad ekena manasaha bhagavan sadvatam patihi shrotavya kirtitavyascha dhyaya pujascha nityada. It is so nicely stated by Shukadev Goswami in 1.2.14 of Srimad Bhagavatam. With one pointed attention, the Govardhan residents, as they performed Govardhan Puja, they constantly heard about Krishna, glorified Krishna, remembered Krishna, and worshipped Krishna. And Krishna is Bhagavan Sadvatam Patihi. He is their protector. They were not afraid of anything. They just followed what Krishna said, and they were very happy. So in this way, Govardhan Puja continued so nicely. And without ulterior motive, without duplicity, the residents of Vrindavan became very happy. Then towards the end of Govardhan Puja, something wonderful happened. Krishna then took on a transcendental, huge, large form, and he did that. He took on a beautiful form, just as large as Govardhan Hill. And he declared to all the residents of Vrindavan, I am Govardhan Hill. Amazing. All the residents of Vrindavan were thunderstruck. They were wonderstruck by Krishna's great, great pastime. He did that, our acharyas say, and Srila Prabhupada says. He did this. He assumed a transcendental form and declared himself as Govardhan because he wanted to convince the devotees that Govardhan Hill and Krishna are identical. Very important. He wanted to repose deep faith in Govardhan. And he wanted the devotees of Vrindavan to stop going through the age-old traditions which have no connection to Krishna. And that is why, that is why he was encouraging them. Krishna is like that, Prabhus and Matajis. When you take up devotional service, he will always find ways, either through devotees or through some pastime, he will always encourage us. And the residents of Vrindavan had taken such a risk. All these years they were doing Indra Puja, and suddenly Krishna turned it around and said, no, now you must do Govardhan Puja. How much faith they must have had in him to take such a risk. That is why he wanted to establish this principle that because you have taken so much risk just on my faith, on faith of me, I am therefore increasing your faith by telling you that this transcendental form of mine is non-different from Govardhan. And then at the same time, Krishna, who's Adbhutaha, what did he do? Even while the transcendental form of him as Govardhan was there, and even though Govardhan Hill was there, Krishna was also in his original form. and he bowed before Govardhan Hill. And as he bowed before Govardhan Hill, he showed all the residents how we should worship Govardhan, how we should worship Govardhan. And as the transcendental form of Govardhan Hill, he kept asking for more and more prasad. And as the residents brought more and more, he ate more and more and more prasad. This was quite amazing, actually. And so the Govardhan Puja finished. And when they finished, all the residents, were so blissful, so happy. They came to thank Krishna. And they went back into their houses. And Govardhan became so ecstatic. Govardhan, the devotee, became so ecstatic. But Indra was not very ecstatic. When Indra understood, that Indra Puja was put aside for Govardhan Puja, then he became very unhappy. He thought to himself, this sacrifice for me that every year they had given, what happened? They put it aside. When someone is glorifying you all the time, it's so easy to become proud, isn't it? And so this Indra Puja became the source of Indra's pride. And he became furious with Nanda Maharaj and residents. That's why Maharaj told us that when pride is in the heart, what happens then is envy comes. After pride, envy will come. So Indra became very envious of Krishna. He became envious of Govardhan, actually. And that is why Prabhupada also says pride comes before fall. His pride led to envy. And he began to think, why did these residents of Vrindavan listen to this little boy Krishna? Who is Krishna? He's talkative. He's childish. Why should anyone listen to Krishna, actually? So you see, actually the subsequent reaction when we are proud of who we are is that when someone else takes something which we think belongs to us, we become envious of that person. So he became envious of Govardhan, the devotee, and he became more envious of Krishna because Krishna was the person, to his mind, who swayed them away from Indra. So he thought, that this boy is very proud. And this is also another symptom of pride. When we are proud, we think others are proud because we project that, and we think that, oh, others are proud. But Maharaj told us, that if we see pride in others, it is because we have it. That's why we can recognize pride. The pure devotee can see it because the pure devotee's business is to check all of us. But when we are dwelling on other people's pride, it's because actually we can see the pride. Maharaj said, that it takes a thief to know a thief, isn't it? So that's why Indra was imputing pride on Krishna. But actually, he was the one who was actually in the syndrome of I am the greatest. It is known in Bhagavatam as Ishamanaha, the supreme mentality. So Indra then was thinking to himself, these Vrindavan residents are foolish people. I'm very upset with them. They have surrendered, instead of to me, they have surrendered to an ordinary boy, Krishna. See, pride blinds us, It blinds us to the supremacy of Krishna and to the greatness of devotees. This is the danger of pride. And then Indra said, they have offended the devatas like me. And foolishly, they think that by offending me, they can cross this ocean on Krishna's boat. Really, on Krishna's boat? Indra forgot that Krishna is the boat, the only boat. Krishna's lotus feet are the only lotus feet on which the devotees can cross this terrible ocean of birth and death, isn't it? He is the only one, actually. And so Indra then turned to the clouds. Indra had a lot of clouds in his armory because he's in charge of rains, right? He would send different clouds everywhere. So he turned to the clouds known as Samvartaka Clouds. These Samvartaka Clouds are very powerful. They are clouds that come actually at the end of the devastation of this material universe. They wipe out this universe, and he wanted to send them to Vrindavan. He said, go, remove this false, arrogant pride of these Vrindavan people. And this arrogance is backed up by that boy, Krishna. Krishna is arrogant, actually. See, Indra said it is Krishna who is arrogant. He cannot see his defects. And he is trying to now minimize my worship. So that is why Maharaj pointed out to us that when we are arrogant, we think others are arrogant. And we criticize others, actually. So these clouds, when they heard this, actually the clouds were afraid. They said, actually, Indra, do you really want us to go? We only use during the end of the annihilation. This is highly disproportionate in terms of punishment. But Indra said, no, 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 just go now and finish them off. So then the clouds, they decided, let us go, we have to follow Indra. So they descended upon Vrindavan just after the Govardhan Puja had finished, and they tormented the inhabitants by powerful torrents of rain. Bhagavatam describes that these torrents of rain were like columns. There was blazing lightning, and there was the roar of the thunder, and they hurled down this rain like shafts and columns of water. And there were large hailstones that hurt the Vrindavan residents when they came out. Within no time, the whole earth of Vrindavan became submerged. There was no difference between high ground and low ground because everything was threatening to be submerged. The Vrindavan residents' reaction, was very, very instructive to all of us. They came out, they were shivering in the cold, they were pained by the cold and the hailstones, and they knew that they were being punished by Indra actually. But even then, they ran to Krishna. They didn't feel that they were forsaken. They didn't feel that they should blame Krishna. They did not scold Krishna. They just ran to Krishna in his house. They all came to his house. And they came to him simply for one thing. They came simply because Krishna is everything to them. Everything to them. And in the 10th canto, 25th chapter, 13th verse, they sing a very beautiful prayer to Krishna that we should always remember. Krishna, Krishna, Mahabhaga, Tvam natam gokulam prabho, tratum arhasi devanaha, kupitad bhaktavatsalaha. So this is a little bit different from the prayer that Arjuna sings, Krishna, Krishna, Mahabaho. There Arjuna is referring to Krishna as one who is mighty limbed. But here the residents are referring to Krishna as Krishna, Krishna, Mahabhaga. Mahabhaga. Bhaga means one who is most fortunate. So they turned to Krishna because they were saying to Krishna actually, Krishna, you are the source of all fortune. Why are they saying that? Because this terrible storm was like a calamity of misfortune. And when they saw this misfortune coming to them, they knew that the only person who can eradicate this misfortune is one who is the source of all fortunes, and one to whom even the goddess of fortune is falling before him. And that is why they say, Krishna, Krishna, you are the most fortunate one. Meaning anyone who is connected to Krishna, they also become fortunate. Then they pray, please deliver us. But the beauty is they don't say us first. In this prayer, they say, deliver the cows from the wrath of Indra. This is the mood of devotees. Devotees never ask that they should be delivered first. They ask that others should be delivered. This is the greatness of devotee. The residents of Vrindavan, their cows are more important to them than their lives. That's why Krishna loves the residents of Vrindavan, and Krishna loves cows. So they prayed, first, Krishna, you protect the cows. Protect them from the anger of Indra. Then they said, Krishna, you are actually very affectionate to the devotees. You're Bhaktavatsala. And therefore, please do one thing. Also save us. So they were saying, you save cows, but you save us too. And what was the reaction of Krishna? Krishna is so kind. When Krishna saw his beloved devotees in distress, he knew then it was because of this angry, envious, and proud Indra. So he thought to himself, this Krishna, this Indra, he's very proud of his opulence. And he thinks himself is the Supreme Lord. Today, I must actually help Indra. See, Krishna was not angry. Krishna was compassionate. I will destroy the mountain of pride that is in Indra. That is the word he uses in this Leela. It's so nice, because Govardhan is a mountain. But there is another mountain in this Leela. This mountain we don't want, but it's the mountain of pride. Just like in Damodar Leela, there are 3 ropes actually. In Damodar Leela, there's the first rope that Mother Yashoda bound Krishna, the rope of love. There's the other rope where the monkeys bound Krishna because they were the Vanaras in the previous life, and Krishna came now to reciprocate. So there was one rope there too. And then there was another rope, the rope that Narada Muni bound Krishna because he prayed for Nalakuvera and Manigriva. So here also there are 2 mountains. But the first mountain is Govardhan Hill, That is the mountain we are praying to. But Krishna now is saying that there is another mountain, but this mountain is no good. It is the mountain of pride and ignorance that has grown in the heart of Indra. And Krishna said, I will break this false prestige of Indra. And by doing that, I will bring him relief. Krishna is always our well-wisher. He was not angry with Indra. He was concerned for him. Sometimes a kind father has to be a bit harsh, with those whom he loves. But that harshness is also a manifestation of his mercy and his love. So then Krishna also stated very nicely that not only must I do that, but I must also protect my devotees. And in Bhagavatam, he says so nicely, that these devotees are also the source of my shelter. So it is my duty. I am their shelter. I am their master. Indeed, they are my family. After all, I have taken a vow to protect my devotees. And that's why the residents of Vrindavan, they are so loved by Krishna. When we are in difficulty, we tend to depend on so many material solutions. And last, if we have some problem and everything else fails, we go to Krishna. But the residents of Vrindavan did not know anything else except Krishna. This is what we should learn from Govardhan Puja, actually. Bilva Mangal Thakur says this very nicely, actually. Sri Krishna Vishnu Madhukaita Bhare Bhaktanukampi Bhagavan Murare Trayasya Mam Keshavalokanatha Govinda Damo Daramadaveti. He chants very nicely, O Krishna, Vishnu, you are the enemy of the Madhu and Kaitaba demons. You are the supreme personality of Godhead, and you are the enemy of Mura demon also. Be merciful upon all of us devotees. Keshava, Lord of the worlds, Govinda, Madhava, Damodara, please deliver us. And this is the prayer of the residents of Vrindavan. So what did Krishna do? Krishna ran out of his house, actually, very quickly. And if you read the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, the disciples of Prabhupada, they quote, in their purport, they quote Sridhar Swami. And Sridhar Swami says, when Krishna came out of his house, the Samvartaka Clouds should have been pouring rain on him. But Krishna has his own potency. Through his potency, one of his energies, right? Krishna was sheltered from this terrible rain, so that when he ran to Govardhan Hill, his turban, his clothes, himself, he was not disturbed. This is Krishna. The Samvartaka Clouds may have been dispatched by Indra, but who is in charge of this entire world? It's Krishna. So he was dry, and he went up to Govardhan Hill, and he picked up Govardhan Hill with his left hand and his last finger. He did this, Shastras tell us, to show us that this is an unimaginable, unachievable feat by any living being in this world. The left hand is normally the weaker hand if you're right-handed. And of all the fingers, the last finger is the most weakest finger, actually. And yet Krishna picked up this amazing, huge Govardhan Hill, and he lifted Govardhan Hill like that. Amazing. And Krishna did this, Prabhupada writes in Krishna book, to show his unlimited strength. And even though he was just a 7-year-old boy at that time, he showed, that he's so powerful that Govardhan Hill, lifting of Govardhan Hill is nothing, because Krishna maintains and supports this entire universe. So what is Govardhan Hill? And Bhagavatam tells us, Krishna picked up Govardhan Hill like a little child will hold up a mushroom. Nothing, a mushroom is nothing for a child. Amazing, actually. And the moment Krishna lifted up Govardhan Hill, he then called everyone, "O residents of Vrindavan, come, all of you take shelter of Govardhan Hill. Don't worry, please come now." And all the residents started running. Now someone may ask, Govardhan Hill is not very big. There were thousands of residents and thousands of cows. How could they all fit under Govardhan? The Shastras tell us actually that when Krishna touched Govardhan Hill, when Krishna just touched Govardhan Hill became so ecstatic that by Krishna's mercy, Govardhan Hill expanded itself. And it expanded itself in ecstasy so that it acquired inconceivable power. And all the residents could come under it very comfortably. The thunderbolts, were hitting the peaks of Govardhan Hill. But because of Krishna's touch, Govardhan Hill did not even feel it. It was like garlands of flowers falling on it. There were wild animals at the top of Govardhan Hill when Krishna lifted. There were hogs, there were wild deer. But even these wild animals, they were all very scared when the thunder came and the lightning struck. But they rushed up to the peak and took shade of Govardhan. And they also did not feel the thunderstorm. So Krishna not only protected the residents under Govardhan, he protected all the residents on Govardhan also. All because Govardhan touched Krishna. All because Govardhan was connected to Krishna. All because Govardhan was conscious of Krishna. That's why Dhruva Maharaj says, Yonta pravishya mamavacham imam prasuktam sanjeevayati akila sakti dara swadhamna. This Shakti Dara, this energy of Krishna is so powerful that when we touch Krishna, or when Krishna touches us, like he touched Dhruva Maharaj, like he touched Govardhan Hill, we can acquire great potency, but only on Krishna's mercy. The moment we become proud of whatever potency Krishna gives us, then Krishna gives us another thunderbolt. And that is what he was going to do now to Indra. So the devotees, their minds became pacified. They became very peaceful and they entered under the hill. And Bhagavatam tells us, all the devotees for 7 days, Krishna held up Govardhan Hill. So if you think you can hold up something with your left hand, with your left finger, the last finger, maybe few minutes you can, but 7 days, only Krishna can do it. Only Krishna can do it. Now all the residents of Vrindavan were under Krishna's shelter for 7 days. They had no prasad. But Bhagavatam tells us they did not feel hunger or thirst. No hunger or thirst. Because just seeing the sight of Krishna satisfied everything. When we are with Krishna, all sense gratification is checked. Because Indra had forgotten Krishna, the sense gratification had overwhelmed him. Krishna himself forgot hunger and thirst. Bhagavatam tells us that forget the residents of Vrindavan. Krishna normally was very hungry for butter and yogurt, but he forgot hunger and thirst. And Krishna put aside all his personal considerations of pleasure. Why? Because he wanted, his pleasure was in giving pleasure to the residents of Vrindavan. So all the residents of Vrindavan, they got one wonderful answer to their prayer. Their only prayer every day was that they should see Krishna continuously and uninterruptedly. Otherwise, what happens? Atitiyad bhavan ahanikananam trute yugayate twamma pashyatam kutila kuntalam srimad atatam bhuvi, no, kutila kuntalam. I forget the last 2 lines actually, it's not coming to me. Jada udikshitam pakshmakrit drisham. So actually, in this prayer by the gopis, Krishna, the gopis are saying, Atitiyad bhavan ahanikananam. Krishna, in the mornings, we take darshan of you, but very quickly after you are bedecked with jewels, you go to the forest with the cows. And when you go to the forest with the cows, it is such a long time that you go away, like a yuga. And when you come back, Sri Mukham Chate, you look even more beautiful than before you left. You are disheveled, dust is in your hair, but it enhances the richness of your hair. And when you come, we want to take darshan again of you. But this creator, Brahma, he's too much. He has given us these eyelids, and these eyelids constantly blink. And when we blink and we don't see you for that second fraction, Trute Yugayate, what happens? It seems like a yuga to us actually. And we can't even see Krishna at that time. So actually it's so nicely they say, because we can't see you at that time, we are feeling separation from you. But in Govardhan Leela, it is so nice. In Govardhan Leela, Krishna did not give that separation. Otherwise at that time, Kutila Kuntalam Shri Mukham Chate, that beautiful figure of Krishna and his ornaments, they could not see it. But now they could see it for 7 days uninterrupted. They could see his curly locks. They could see everything. And Krishna was before them. So whatever prayers that they had in their heart, Indra appeared to be a terrible thing. Indra and the rains were terrible. But because Krishna is there, what looked like a calamity became a blessing. It became a blessing. And this is what the residents wanted. So whenever our motive is correct to come to Krishna, Krishna will always give us uninterrupted darshan. This is very important. And they continuously drank the beauty, the nectar and the beauty of Krishna. And this nectar of Krishna, not only they were drinking by seeing him, but they were drinking also by hearing about him. And this is very important to us also, Prabhus and Matajis. In 2.237 of Srimad Bhagavatam, very nicely Shukadev Goswami says, Pibanti ye bhagavata atmana satam kathamritam shravana puteshu sambritam punanti te vishaya vidushita shayam vrajanti tacharana saroruhantikam. So nicely Shukadev Goswami says that those who drink the oral reception of Krishna, which is fully filled with the nectarian message of Krishna, these great devotees for whom Krishna is the beloved, it purifies the polluted aim of life. Otherwise, Indra was not hearing about Krishna. He wanted to hear his glories. So the aim of his life was polluted. And the aim of our lives are polluted too. And that's why Krishna gave wonderful darshan for 7 days and 7 nights. Now Indra, when he saw this amazing transcendental potency of Krishna, he was astonished. Bhagavatam says he was astonished. And he was pulled down rapidly from the platform of his false pride. His intentions were thwarted, and he called the clouds back. And then Krishna at that time, simultaneously knowing that now Indra was beginning to repent, Krishna saw the clouds going, and he said, please now, all of you go home. While the rains were going on and Krishna was holding up, even though the rains were coming, they should have flooded even where they were all standing. Actually, where they were standing on the Govardhan hill, the rain should have flooded there also. But Bhagavatam tells us because of Krishna's Yogamaya potency, the rains that kept coming were drained and drained and drained by Krishna's potency. So that when the clouds completely stopped, the residents of Vrindavan were very easily, they could go back to their houses. Because Krishna, by his potency, had drained the entire Vrindavan of rain. The residents were so overwhelmed with love that 7 days they could see Krishna. And so they all greeted Krishna according to their relationship with him as they left. Some of them embraced him because they were friendly with Krishna. Some saw Krishna as someone so powerful and they bowed before him. Someone, felt Krishna was a small boy and they blessed him. They showered auspicious benedictions on him. Some of them felt very formal with Krishna, but they felt that Krishna, out of love, we want to shower you with gifts. Those who love Krishna like a child, they smelled his head, like parents smell the heads of their children. Some of them, even closer to Krishna, they kissed him like Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda Mata. And their equals like the Gopas, they were joking and slapping him on his back and they were laughing. They were massaging his feet because they said, Krishna, you stood for 7 days. Let us massage your feet. And the gopis, they were completely mesmerized by Krishna. And they were just singing his glories as they went home, actually. So like that, all the residents of Vrindavan, what was a calamity turned out to be the best 7 days of their life. And then Krishna left all of them and he went to a secluded path where he was sitting down tendering the cows. And as the residents of Vrindavan went back, they were all talking amongst themselves, especially the cowherd men. And that chapter in Krishna book is known as Wonderful Krishna. They were glorifying Krishna. They were saying, this Krishna is extraordinary, Nanda Maharaj. When he was an infant, he killed Putana. When he was 3 months old, he struck and broke the cart demon. When he was 1 year old, he killed that Trinavrata. When he was tied to a mortar, he just took down 2 amazing, huge Yamal Arjuna trees. When he was so young, he killed Bakasura. He killed this Vatsasura, who was a calf demon. He killed Dhenukasura, who was the ass demon. He killed, he and Pralamba, he and Balram together, they vanquished Pralambasura. He chastised Kalia. And so they were remembering, do you remember Garga Muni, that astrologer? He came and he said, this child is as good as Narayana. So what were the residents doing? They were glorifying Krishna. And like that, they just went back. But as they went back, quickly the Yogamaya potency came. And finally they concluded that Krishna must have been blessed by Narayana. And that's why for a while he performed great potency. But now he's our Krishna. and they went back to loving him as Krishna. Meanwhile, Indra came. And when Indra came with Surabhi. Now, Surabhi cow actually was supposed to serve Indra. But she realized, that serving Indra was no point because Indra is not the supreme personality of Godhead. But she came because she wanted to glorify Krishna. So Indra came, and he was very ashamed. Bhagavatam says, he repented very nicely. So repentance is the way to see Krishna. Unborn child prayers, atapyamana hridayam. Huh? It is stated that when the unborn child says that actually when we are repentant in our heart, then only we can perceive Krishna. And Maharaj told us very often, you cannot sense the presence of Krishna until you express remorse, repentance. You can only express remorse and repentance for your activities when you admit to the fact that you are wrong. Maharaj said, until you admit to the fact that you are wrong, that you are defective, and it is genuine, not false humility, then we cannot become remorseful. Then how can we become repentant? But Indra admitted to his failings. That is why he is a devotee. He felt remorseful and he bowed before Krishna. But Indra, even though Indra was very remorseful, Krishna is so kind. Krishna went to this very quiet spot away from everyone because he knew the heart of his devotee Indra. He had faith that Indra would repent, and he did not want to humiliate Indra in front of all the other residents. So you see how sensitive Krishna is. And as Vaishnavas, we should also be very sensitive. Sometimes devotees may make mistakes, Maharaj said very often. But it doesn't mean we humiliate them, doesn't mean we put them down. We should, because we are also in that same position. So who is who to put someone down, So Krishna was so kind. So he came to a soft, very quiet spot, and Indra came at that point of time. And at that point of time, Indra started glorifying Krishna. And when he glorified Krishna, his glorification was so nice. In one particular glorification, he says, Krishna, I thought that you were proud. But actually, how can pride exist in you actually? It only greed, lust, envy, and anger. They will only exist in the living entities because they are produced by our involvement in material existence. It's a very important point. I forget the shloka of his prayer, but it is in the 10th canto, it is in the 27th chapter, and it's the 5th verse. Of all the shlokas that Maharaj looked at Indra's prayers, this one he liked very much. And here he liked it very much because he said that Indra is pointing out why there is pride in our hearts. And he's saying pride is in our heart. Greed, lust, envy, anger, and envy. They are in our hearts because we have always been involved and entangled in material existence. And Indra is saying why to become further entangled. And so he prays to Krishna and says, Krishna, please impose punishment, because this punishment is actually mercy, actually. See, this is the mood of a devotee. And Krishna said, please, Indra said, please forgive me. May my intelligence never be bewildered, and let my consciousness never again become so impure. And Krishna blessed Indra and said that, Indra, may you always be blessed. Please go and please perform whatever you have to do. And Krishna very smilingly told Indra that I did this Leela not only to show you the greatness of Vrindavan residents, but to also check the pride that was growing in your heart. And now I pray that you should not have any pride in your heart, but you should just serve me very nicely. And after he said that, Surabhi also offered beautiful prayers to him. And Surabhi said, actually, Krishna, you are the origin of Indra, and you should be actually the original Indra. And so she said, that instead of other Indras occupying the post of Indra, only you deserve to be the person who's worshipable. And so she poured nice milk on Indra, on Krishna in the presence of Indra and all the devatas. There was a puja for Krishna after Govardhan Puja. There was like an abhishek for him, It was glorification of him. And then after that, all the residents went back and Indra went back also. So there are some nice lessons from Govardhan pastime we should remember. It is actually out of the mercy of Krishna that actually we are able to perform anything. Indra missed that, and because Indra missed that point, that is the reason why he actually was caught by pride. Janma Aishwarya Sruta Shrivir, Edamana Madaha Puman. Kunti Mata says in Bhagavatam that when we think we are high parentaged, if we think we are very wealthy, very rich, very beautiful to look at, and very educated, we become intoxicated by that pride. So we should always remember that actually we cannot come to Krishna. We cannot come to Krishna and have feelings. We cannot utter Krishna's name with feelings. Abhidatu nai varhati vai. Nai varhati abhidatum vai. We don't deserve to pray to Krishna because tvam akinchana gochara. Krishna reserves his right to be the property of the impoverished. The residents of Vrindavan were impoverished not because they did not have material possessions. No, they were very rich with their cows. They were very rich with their land. But they were impoverished because they were not attached to what they had. So this is very important. A man blinded by intoxication with power and opulence cannot see Krishna. And Krishna comes with the rod of punishment in his hand. So Krishna says, if I really desire someone's welfare, then I drag him down from his most unfortunate position. So this is actually the mercy of the Lord. So we should never forget, Prabhus and Matajis, that we must always align ourselves with the vision of Krishna. So in this pastime, Krishna not only gave mercy to the residents of Vrindavan, but he also fulfilled the desires of them. In their difficulty, they turned to Krishna and they got uninterrupted darshan. But at the same time, Krishna satisfied a very important part of his function as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he smashed the pride of Indra. He took away his anger, he took away his envy. And in that way, he gave shelter to them. And he also wanted us to remember that Govardhan Hill is very, very special to Krishna. Because of all the devotees, Krishna declares that Govardhan is the best. Why? Because Govardhan supplies Krishna and Balaram, along with calves, cows, and cowherd friends. He supplies all kinds of necessities. Govardhan supplies water for drinking. Govardhan supplies soft grass. Govardhan supplies fruits, flowers, and vegetables. And in this way, Govardhan always offers respects to the Lord. So Govardhan is always touched by lotus feet of Krishna. And therefore, this Govardhan is the most blessed devotee of Krishna. And he is the most jubilant. All glories to Govardhan and all glories to Krishna in his wonderful form of Govardhan. Hare Krishna,